Hello and welcome back to the Overdue Sports Show, episode 6 of the Overdue Sports Show. I'm your host, Jake Sawinski, accompanied by, as always, Will Massa. How was your weekend, Will? How you doing?
Another weekend full of college baseball, but we're doing good. Spring training is kicking up. We're kind of in baseball's zen mode where it's about to kick up, but we're kind of getting first looks at everything. We got college basketball right around the corner. NHL is picking back up, gearing up for playoffs. So we got a good month and a half stretch here of stuff.
Yeah, the busy season is approaching. Next week's episode, we can promise, is going to be really college basketball focused just because of the conference tournament starting with all the weird, Patriot, NEC, all those crap conferences. Those are starting next week, and then we'll get to the big boys a little later. But let's kick it off with some MLB talk. Spring training is starting. It's right around the corner. I accidentally bet the Cubs and Dodgers preseason or spring training game. I thought it was like one of those Korea deals, but then I was thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, they did that in like March. I bet on a spring training game. The Cubs won, but gonna start it off with some free agent signings. It seemed like a little quieter this year. I don't know if you concur with that or not, but there were some big names moved, obviously, like Juan Soto signing with the Mets, Kyle Tucker with the Cubs, Alex Bregman, Red Sox. And I mean, there's a slew of names. Just, it felt like the blockbuster signing outside of like Soto and Tucker really didn't happen this offseason.
Yeah, I would agree. It like obviously you had Soto at the top and Tucker was in a trade deal, so that like blew up Twitter. Same with the Garrett Crochet deal as well for Boston. Like that was also a trade, so that blew up on Twitter. But as far as like the big names, it just felt like there weren't as many. I mean, the next biggest name after Soto was probably Willy Adames, who ended up in San Francisco. So like you're right in the way that there wasn't, these top tier players. There wasn't multiple top tier players. It was kind of Soto and then a bunch of dudes that are maybe not superstars, but like the next step down from superstars, like very good players. There's a lot of very good players in it, but not a bunch of ton of really good players.
Right. I mean, I would add Max Fried to that list. I know he's kind of
Yeah.
been not as good as he was when he won the World Series a couple of years ago. I mean, battling a little bit of injury stuff, whatnot. I mean, he was not like he was bad last year, but wasn't he on the shelf for a couple months stretch there? Or am I thinking of the
Yeah,
year
he's
before?
been banged up over the last couple of years in small stretches, but I thought that was a good signing as well. Like, yeah, I don't think he's quite ace material anymore, but when you have Garrett Cole, you don't really need that. So he'll
Hmm.
make a really good number two. He'll make a really good number three in New York. So I like that signing a lot. But yeah, it was a lot of guys that fall into that semi middle of the order, and then there was just a lot of smaller guys that just kind of got shopped around.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too. Just kind of looking through the dozen or 2 dozen names we wrote down before the show started, it seems like there were you know, rotation pieces moved, role guys moved, and then some of the higher profile guys. It was kind of just like a fresh start for, a guy like Jorge Soler comes off of a World Series MVP in 2021, gets moved to the Giants, a couple seasons after, and it just didn't work there whatsoever. And he's on a new club this year, so it's kind of a fresh start for him. But a team near and dear to my heart that we must talk about are the Chicago Cubs with their offseason. Take it away.
I mean, you have to be beyond excited about Kyle Tucker. I've been beating
Yeah.
the drum
Oh
on
God,
him for the
yeah.
last couple of
So
years. Like
we
he's
both have been.
yeah. I mean, he's one of the best players in the league when he's healthy. I was kind of a proponent of him winning AL MVP last year, and he got banged up pretty quickly and missed a good middle portion of the season. But for the Cubs and to go out and get a guy like that, I mean, you bring in Craig Counsell last year, and you kind of feel like the stars are aligning, and they bring in some good pieces, and then they, quite frankly, stunk last year. They were bad last year. The
Yeah,
catching was
very
bad, the
below
bullpen was bad.
expectations. Yes.
Yeah, Justin Steele wasn't what we saw 2 years ago. And I think he's going to be a guy that bounces back really well. You get PCA in his first full year, and I don't think that he's going to give you a ton at the plate, but if he can not
No,
strike out,
none.
he'll be a nice piece. I mean, that's the big thing with him is can you get him to put the ball in play more? Seiya Suzuki, I'm a big fan of. He's a great bat. I was kind of hoping that somebody would that the Dodgers would make a move on him, but he's going to make a really good bat for the Cubs. And then you go and get one of the best hitters in the league in Kyle Tucker, and at not a huge cost, you give up Isaac Paredes, who everyone keeps beating the drum. He's going to be a Crawford box menace and just hit 40 bombs in that stadium. I am not a Paredes guy. I say this all the time. I do not think he's very good, but that's a really good fit for him in Houston. And if you get Kyle Tucker out of it, pretty good deal. But I will say this. They gave up Cam Smith, who was their first round pick last year out of Florida State. He was one of, if not the most complete hitter in the draft, and they ended up scooping him up at, I think they were at the 14th pick, like way later than I thought that he was going to go. Like they got a steal at that position, and to trade him is a huge loss because he's a guy that's probably going to be ready this year. He's extremely solid at the plate, and he's good enough in the field. And if you don't extend Kyle Tucker, I think it's going to be a really bad look for Chicago. That's my fear with them. And I think this trade is fantastic. Like, you can't miss the opportunity to get a top 10 player in the league, regardless of what it costs you. I stand by that. You know, Cam Smith has never played an MLB game, so I can't die on that hill. But if you don't re-sign Kyle Tucker, you just gave up maybe your future third baseman for maybe a playoff appearance.
Yeah.
Hopefully win the division, right?
Yeah, the Tucker thing is ecstatic for because he's incredible. And you mentioned him at the plate. He's also one of the best defenders at any position in the entire league. One of the best base runners in the league at any position. So, like, you're getting a true five-tool player there, but you're playing your team's in a huge market. Like, I would like to see some commitment to try to keep him there. You know what I mean? I don't want this to be a rental when after looking at last year, it seemed like the team was still more than one guy away, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Just you get your new manager, and I'm not a Craig guy, never have been a Craig guy. Like, he's a regular season hero, but he crumbles in the playoffs. Like, that's what the Brewers have done for the last, I don't know. He's been in the playoffs every year. He was there pretty much, right? If Craig Counsell was there in Milwaukee 7 years, he's been to the playoffs 5 times. They make it out of the first round once. Like, okay, that's fine though. I'm not going to say he's like the worst manager ever. I'm just not a Craig guy. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, the players play whatever. The pitching was all over the place, right? In 2023, you had your bullpen be like the worst bullpen in baseball up until June. And then from June to the end of August, they were the best bullpen in baseball, if not 1, 2. And then September, you were the worst bullpen in baseball. The rotation wasn't good a lot of that season either, but it came together, and like, it looked like you had the pieces there. You could kind of work with it, but I don't know. I like the reliability with the pitching. And like, there were still like some considerable holes in the lineup too. Like, the catching hasn't really been there. I mean, Yan Gomes had like a career year at age 36. Like, okay, you can't count on that. They don't have a first baseman. So I don't know. I just felt like, yes, you have Seiya Suzuki and Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner and like a really good, you've got your shortstop, second baseman. You've got enough to compete. It's just, I still felt like adding Kyle Tucker wasn't like, okay, now we're ready to go to the NLCS. Maybe I'm off base there, but like, just the step down they took from 2023 to last year, it seemed like, okay, maybe 2025 isn't the time to do that yet. But like you said, I think Kyle Tucker is going to be like one of the best players, playing right now in 10, 15 years. Like, if he keeps up at this trajectory, he'll be a Hall of Fame player, I think. Like, he's fantastic. Health, obviously, but I mean, I think he's really good. I think a lot of people think he's really good. That's like kind of the consensus with him, right? Like, everyone thinks, oh, this guy's going to be really, really good. And he's already shown that promise. It's just, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, you getting Bregman spending some money to get Bregman would have been like, okay, we're actually like going for it. I'm just afraid they're kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out with the whole situation. And that I feel like that's really bad for the long-term health of the team, because you do this, it blows up in your face, then he leaves, and then you're back to square one. So it's like, I'm excited, but also in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if we're quite there yet. I mean, I know they moved on from a couple of the problem bullpen arms. Like Julian Merriweather was one of their better arms. I think he's still there. He was hurt last season. Adbert's gone. That guy was a roller coaster last year.
Hector Neris is
Hector Neris, that guy was a bozo. Like, it's not 2016 anymore. We talked about him all last season. He was frustrating, but I'm excited, but like, I still have my reservations about it because I just don't think holistically the team is 100% there yet with adding Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, and to your point, like obviously the outfield is going to be really good. The outfield right now, as a 4-man rotation, whatever you want to call it, is Tucker, Suzuki, Ian Happ, and PCA. So you've got 3 really good bats.
3 Gold Glovers out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you got to be excited
Maybe
about
4.
that. Dansby is forever
Gold
one of
Glover.
the best defensive shortstops in the league every single year. But to your point on Bregman, like you knew you needed a third baseman after moving on from Isaac Paredes, but why sign Justin Turner? Like, why wouldn't you go all in?
Yeah, that didn't make much sense to me either. And it's not like Justin Turner's a horrible baseball player. He's almost 40 years old, though. Yeah, I mean, what do you really expect out of him? He'll play passable defense. If he hits 270, you're probably happy with that. But Bregman, I think, was a guy who needed a fresh start. It almost seemed like, I don't want to say fatigued, but I kind of want to say fatigued. You know, you had 2 World Series and perennial contenders. It's like I feel like maybe it was just time for him to move on, for him, not so much for the team, even though I think the Astros definitely needed to go in a different direction. But it seemed like if you could have gave him money, like that really clears up a lot of the other concerns you have. Like Houston's a hitter-friendly park. Chicago is one of the places that might be an upgrade for that. You know what I mean? Like, summer day in July, the wind's probably blowing out to left field. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and like, it's not like the Cubs or the Brewers or the Guardians. I almost said the Indians, the Guardians or the Twins, or like a small market team. They have the money to pay them, and it's like if you go make this big free agent or this big trade splash, continue to do it. Like, I don't think adding Bregman's going to hurt your team. It might hurt your payroll, but like, we don't have a huge guy on contract outside of what you'll have to pay Tucker next season. You know what I mean? Dansby's probably the one taking the biggest cap hit. Or they don't have cap, but you get what I'm saying. Like, he's probably your most expensive contract. It's a role. The hitters are very role player focused. Tucker, Swanson, and those are the exceptions. Like, it's a really, all hands on kind of approach. It's not a superstar lineup. It hasn't been in a while. So,
yeah. And for me, like, I understand laying off of Bregman when the talk of the town was that you were looking at 6 or 7 years of a commitment. And so I understood that because I mean, he's 31, but he got 4 years for Boston. I believe it was 4. And it was a really good deal, like a really team-friendly deal as far as years. Obviously, you pay a little bit more when you shorten the time, but I think the Cubs could have gotten in that action. And to give that commitment for 4 years would have been a slam dunk for them. And you look at the pitching, and I hate to say it, but I think Imanaga might take a step back this year. I mean,
yeah,
his first year in the league
he was
last
unreal.
year. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, now you have a scouting report on him. He's got that good fastball.
He's very heavy fastball, but it's not a ton of variation with the pitches he throws. They're all very similar. The change of speed's not quite always there. And the writing was kind of on the wall last year a little bit. Like, when he got tagged bad. Like, he was good most of the time just because he's super deceptive, and those small lefties always seem to like find a way to like play the game in the game. And when he was bad, he was terrible. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to like take a huge step back, Right? I still
No.
think at worst he'll be like really good, but you throwing 92 all the time, 92 to 87. Your changeup's 84. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. And I think I
it's just a
do
different
have to
game.
say, I think Justin Steele is going to be better this year. And then you go out and you get Colin Ray, who is, I don't understand how he puts up the numbers that he did in
No, I don't
Milwaukee. And
either. He's an
I
innings
think it's
eater though.
I
Yeah.
think he's a Brewers pitching lab product kind of deal
Yeah, I
because
don't
he's
know.
a
I'm
Chad
not.
innings eater.
Yeah.
You still got Jordan Wicks. I'm really excited about Ben Brown this year. So there's some pieces in the fold. And then you go out and get Ryan Presley to kind of
I like
shore up
that
the
signing
closer
too.
spot. It's
Yeah,
a
because
really good
that's the
signing.
one thing they needed. It seemed
Yeah.
like when Steele was pitching well and Shota pitched well most of the time, it seemed like they could get to the seventh inning with no issues. In the games that they pitched well. You got to the seventh, and then I was like, okay, hold on. These next two innings are going to be impossible. You gave Adbert a leash because of how well he played in 2023, and he was awesome. But he totally folded like a cheap tent. I don't know what happened there. I mean, and like we're both pitchers, we know how it is sometimes, but it seemed like he couldn't get out of that funk. Like it was from April to September, he was bad. And Hector Neris, same thing. It's not 2016. So I like the Presley signing a lot. I mean, he's older too, but like he's always been pretty
He's proven.
consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always been nails for the most part. But the Cubs do have a way of kind of finding like that long relief guy that gets it done. Like Hayden Wisniewski was one of those guys. Would you say he's good? Like really, really good? Not really, but like
He's going to be
played
very
it.
serviceable.
Yeah, I don't even think he's on the team anymore, though. I think they moved
No.
on from him.
Yeah.
But like a guy like him, that like one guy always kind of seems to come out of the pen that way, and like, oh, he'll spot start, right? Like kind of how Drew Smiley was for like the 6-week stretch this season before, where like, oh, this guy was really good, and then he like fell apart. One guy always seems to emerge for them. With the starting pitching's bad, I don't think that's the issue. I really think it's the 8th and 9th inning where that bullpen needs a lot of work. You mentioned PCA too. That guy won't hit his body weight, and he might be 175 pounds. I'm not very high on him hitting, but if he could get on base and force the ball in play, he'll steal you 20 hits, 30 hits a year just because of how fast he is. So putting the ball in play is a priority for him. He'll be one of the best center fielders in the league. That guy tracks everything. And I don't even think it's like due to like defensive knack or ability. He's just so fast. You know what I mean? But nervously excited, I guess you could say. There any other teams you like? Kudos to them. Good off season.
Yeah, the Guardians are one, and we talk about the Cubs, having this resource of a lot of money. Chicago's a huge market. We all know that Cleveland is the definition of the small market team, and they always seem to be really savvy in their signings, and they did it again this year. And to their credit, they've built such a good franchise that Shane Bieber took next to nothing for what he's actually worth to come back. I think he took 14 a year over a handful of years, which he's a legitimate Cy Young candidate when he's healthy. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball when he's rolling. So to be able to get him back in the fold, you move on from Josh Naylor to get Slade Kachoni from Arizona, which I thought was going to be a really good deal. I feel like he was just one of those guys that just never figured it out in Arizona. And I think he falls into that fresh start mold. And Cleveland's pitching department and development is just going to do such good stuff with him. And I had a lot of people bookmark a tweet when they made that trade, and I said they're going to turn him into a demon. So I hope I'm right on that.
Yeah, I hope so too. Because I feel like the Guardians are one of those teams that everybody roots for in a way.
Yeah.
Unless you're like a Reds fan or something. I feel like nobody really maybe the Yankees now. It kind of seems like they've blossomed into a bit of a postseason rivalry, even though they kick ass every time they play. But it seems like maybe it was Major League and everyone liked the Indians just because of that movie. But I don't know anyone who like personally dislikes the Guardians. I don't know. I feel like
No,
they're
and so
very
much of their
rootable
talent is
franchise.
homegrown. It's such an easy team to root for. Like when you know that 80% of the dudes on the starting roster are guys that they have developed. And then recently they signed John Means from Baltimore. He
Fresh start guy.
famously, fresh start guy for sure. Famously threw a no hitter like 2 years ago. That's kind of probably
Yeah,
all he's
it
known for.
hasn't played since. Yeah, right.
Yeah, like I thought they did a good job, and they're gonna keep going. I mean, J Ram is the dude there. He's a superstar,
I
one of the
want to
best third
bet him to
basemen in
win. I
baseball.
want him to win an MVP. He
I
is
know,
so
so
good. He's so good, and it's just fucking Aaron Judge. Like, what are you gonna do?
and
Like,
now you got Bobby Witt in the fold. It's like who is it gonna like?
yeah, dude. He's just consistent as hell.
I think he's
Both
got 8
sides,
straight 30
dude.
seasons.
He's so good, and he just packs in big chaws and gets in fights, and dude, he's awesome. I wish I was Jose Ramirez, dude. He's the best. Love
Yeah,
that guy.
it's very easy guy to root for. But yeah, I thought the Guardians did a good job, and they did the Guardians thing. They signed guys for cheap. They found value where they needed it, and they made things happen. And you have to respect when teams do that. And for them to bring in a guy also in Carlos Santana, who was on probably the best bang for buck deal in the MLB last year. The Twins paid him like $2 million last year, and he almost hit 20 bombs. So I know he's also very old. I think he's approaching that 40 mark as well. I believe he's 38 this year. So yeah, he's getting up there too, but he's a guy that's probably going to hit 15 bombs for them. So
Yeah, was he on the World Series team? I
oh,
thought he was.
probably, dude. He's been around for so
I
long.
know that guy.
He's
It
like
seems like
definition of a journeyman. I don't know what years
yeah.
he was where, but I mean,
It's hard to keep track of because like he seems to get traded every season. Like I think
yeah,
he has seriously played on 10 teams or 10
he's in
teams, like or
Cleveland,
7 teams
Philly.
multiple
He's been on.
times.
This is the third separate time with
Yeah, that's what I
gaps that he's
mean.
been in Cleveland. Actually, the fourth. This will be the fourth
Yeah,
time he's been in Cleveland with gaps in between. So, like,
Twins,
just
Pirates, Brewers, Royals,
Philly.
Philly, everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah. He was in
but
Seattle for a little bit too.
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that guy's literally been everywhere.
Yeah. But very
But
good offseason for them. I love
mhm.
what the Guardians did.
Yeah, I still don't know if it's going to be enough though. I feel like they really need to like get a big guy. Like that's a team I feel like hey, they're right there. Like the pitching always seems to be by committee like days 3, 4 and 5. Maybe with Caccione, however you say that Italian kid's name. Bieber being healthy again. I feel like maybe they can stretch that to having 3 like legitimate starters, but it just seems like the Logan Allen or the Hunter Gaddis experiment. It's always like an all hands on deck kind of day. It seems like they have those like 3 days a week,
Yeah.
which probably isn't ideal, but
I think they do now too, and I think that was one of their shortcomings in the postseason. But now, if Bieber's healthy, you've got a legitimate, bona fide ace in Bieber. You have Tanner Bybee, who I'm really high on, but last year was his first time in the postseason. He struggled a little bit after being dynamite all regular season. And then if you can piece something up with Caccione, you have a nice number 3 right there. And then you've got guys like Ben Lively and then, like you said, like Hunter Gaddis, like you can piece together a lot of solid starts out of those guys. And Ben Lively was sneaky good last year. And if that's your 4 guy, like you've got yourself a pretty solid rotation. And so if they can figure out Caccione and really like turn him into a prototype of Guardians pitching, they're going to be really solid.
All right. Before we move on, is there anyone you think struggled this deadline? Anything that didn't make a ton of sense to you? Like I felt like the Phillies were quiet.
The Phillies were pretty quiet. My biggest one was the Padres, actually, because with how good they were last year, it really felt like that Dodgers and Padres series like was the World Series. That was probably the best set of any of the playoff series outside of maybe Brewers and Mets. It felt like they were there. It felt like they were the second best team in the NL, and the Dodgers took them in the third game, and it felt like the thing that did it was that Shohei Ohtani home run off of Dylan Cease. It just kind of turned the tides for them, and then the Padres got shut out for the rest of the series. But to me, like that was the team last year that was the scariest team going into the playoffs, and for them to get into the offseason and really do nothing, it really surprised me because it legitimately felt like they were one piece away.
Yeah,
And
I kind of felt like that too. I mean,
and they just didn't do anything.
but then again, it's like kind of in the boat with the Phillies, right? Like the Phillies have a complete team. The Padres damn near have a complete team. It's like,
Yeah.
are you gonna really go load up just because of like one bad pitch or one bad game or one bad series? Like, no, but then it's like the Dodgers have been doing that for 7 years. It's like, and the Yankees have been doing that for 7 years. It's kind of like what you have to do. So it's like kind of surprising
Yeah. And
because
to your
like you were
point,
right.
like
It felt
if
like they
you
were right.
go out and you get one more infielder, I mean, you have Xander Bogaerts, who you never know what you're going to get as far as health. Like, who knows if he's ever going to stay healthy for a full year? So like, you don't know what you have in him.
They
Obviously, you
lost
have
Ha-Seong
Machado.
Kim. They lost
Yeah,
Kim, right? Yeah.
they let Kim walk. But you still have Luis Arias, who's going to do what he does. I mean, he's not good defensively, but you'll slot him in at first. You'll slot him in at second. You have Jake Cronenworth. But this is a team that could have benefited from a guy like Bregman or, one of those guys to just fill in at a different position, not necessarily Bregman, but
Someone.
a higher tier signing. I mean, the infield is, if there's any injuries, I mean, you're looking at a mix of Cronenworth, Connor Joe, and Tyler Wade. And so it's like, you better hope you don't have an injury there because you take a really big step back. And the outfield this year is going to look like Tatis, Merrill, and then who knows who's going to be the third guy. It might be Lockridge. It might be Jason Hayward, who's also approaching
Yeah.
that 40 mark.
Yeah, I guess the saving grace for them on the injury front is at least you could move Tatis back. At least
Yes.
you could put
Yeah.
Cronenworth anywhere. Like it seems like
Yeah, they have some
they're
flexibility.
like true utility there. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And I shouldn't say they didn't do anything. They did sign Nick Pivetta, who's probably going to be their fourth
Yeah,
starter, which is like
that's a good arm.
a very good fourth starter if that's your fourth starter. So I did like that move. The pitching for them is obviously going to be really good.
It
I just
always
felt like,
is.
yeah, I mean, you just felt like they were one piece away and you were kind of waiting for them to make a big move and just never came. But you're right. I mean, it's a team that feels like a very complete team, as are the Phillies. So it probably falls into that bucket where it's like, what do you realistically need to do? But to compete with the Dodgers in their NL and in your own division, it's like,
you kind of do have to. You have to kind of keep up with the Joneses.
It's an arms race.
Yeah, literally. But anything else to add on the baseball front before we move on to a little more fun segment?
That's all I got.
Okay. Don't mind the airplane going on in the background. I don't even know if you can hear that or not. I've got the patio open. It's 50 degrees in Wisconsin, so like some fresh air in here is pretty nice. But I know it's college baseball for you, but did you watch any college basketball this weekend, in particular Sunday?
No, not on Sunday.
I
Only
know
on
you've
Saturday.
been very frustrated, but Saturdays is just the men's board is so big. But I want to say this in a politically correct way, but I'm very tired of ESPN ramming women's sports down my throat. Like, I'm not saying this because I don't like women or women's sports. It's just objectively not popular. Am I wrong? Have I said anything incorrect yet?
No.
Like, I put women's basketball on a pedestal above the NBA. College women's definitely better. Like Caitlin Clark made it remotely popular. Like if she didn't go play college basketball, no one would care. But like they're doing college game day for women's basketball, which I'm all for if people are into it, but I think the problem is nobody is into it. Am I right? Like, do you have anything to add to this? I ambushed you. I told you I was going to ambush you before the show started, and you were probably like, "What the hell?"
I mean, to your point, like it's a matter of how many people show up. Like we see the clips of college game day for men's hoops, and the place is jam packed at like 5 a.m. So like if that is the case, then by all means, like do your thing. Like,
Yeah, no. And like it's not about like, oh, men's sports are better than women's sports. Nothing about that at all. It's like they don't even care about it. Why should we? And and it's like ESPN in the last 5 years has had lots of issues with certain things about like with Disney owning them and whatnot. That's a whole different bag for another podcast because we're not talking about that. But like nobody wants to watch it. Why are you force feeding it? You know what I mean? Like they have to see the ratings on it. Like I'll watch a women's basketball game if nothing else is on, or if like the women or like one of the men's games ends and the multi-view closes. I have YouTube TV, so like I can watch it in the 4 game windows. I'm not gonna change it if one's on there, but like if a new multi-view's open, I'm gonna change it. Like they don't even care about it. Why should I? You know what I mean? But I guess my question to you is how would you fix that? Because I know how I would fix it.
It's a really good question. I mean, here's the thing is like the viewership in women's college basketball last year was crazy. With
because Caitlin Clark. And like I would watch it, and everybody would. I wasn't unique to that.
100%.
Like,
No,
everybody would. She was awesome.
I mean, if you look at like what Iowa could have done on a college game day for that, like a ton of people would have been there. But I don't think they have that superstar. Like, and granted, like she's a dime a dozen, if not like one in a million kind of deal. And so it's hard. Like I don't really know how you fix that as far as like what people want to see. I mean, the big thing is getting students there. Like, how are you going to get 10, 15, 20,000 students to your stadium?
That's true. But like to your superstar point, I'd like to push back on it a little bit because like men's obviously you get the
men's
publicity. Well, Cooper Flag.
Yeah, but in the last 2 years, we haven't seen like a dude.
Not like a Zion or someone like that. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but like I see some stupid ass shit every Saturday when I watch college basketball. It has nothing to do with the product because those guys are just as dumb as anything a girl would do on the basketball.
You watched the Wisconsin game? You watched the last 2 minutes of that Wisconsin game against Oregon?
Stupid.
They threw the ball out of bounds on 3 straight possessions. I've never seen that happen before. Like,
and that's Greg Gard. That's my guy. Like, what are we doing, Greg? You're being stupid. Your team's being stupid. So that's not the issue.
No, it's not. I will agree with that.
Yeah, that's not the problem. Betting markets. Markets.
That's a really
good point. Make it readily available to bet on. That would fix it. I guarantee it. People, you should see my betting cards. I'm not like I don't have like a very large unit size. More ways than one. But I do. I did 63 bets last Saturday, 58 this previous Saturday. I don't even do that dumb stuff. Like I pace it out throughout the day. If I suck, I'll stop. I'm not like, oh, I did 63 bets at one time and my hair's falling out and drinking like sweating profusely. I'm not doing that. But some people do some stupid stuff. Let them bet on it. That would make ratings. Like ESPN has their own sports book. Yeah. Maybe lines are available for all these games, but I don't think they are.
You know what my thing is? I'm gonna just tag onto this with the betting piece. If you look at the lines, even in ranked games, I mean, you can look at lines that are minus 18.5 for the number 20 team versus the number 3 team. You know what I mean? They're like the number 20 team versus an unranked team. The line is going to be 18.5. So it's like there has to be a way at some point where the talent field
it seems like it's all on South Carolina and UConn. And see, I know a little bit about women's
and LSU has been good the last handful of years.
but like to your point, who wants to watch like Tennessee beat Georgia by 40? Yeah, and Georgia scores 26 points.
Yeah, the problem is in conference play. So like obviously in men's hoops, like you get Duke versus some A10 team. Let's say they play URI or Fordham, like, they're going to beat the brakes off of them, but I'm not going to bet that game because the line is like 25. There's 15 other games I can bet where the spread is under 8 points. Like, I think it's the quantity of games that you see under, like, Saturdays are so great this time of year because it's all conference play. Like every, I'll
There's
say
so many opportunities. Yeah, like
80% of the SEC games are 4-point spreads and under. Like if you could get to that point where like in conferences, didn't matter who you played, like ACC, the SEC, every team was kind of like neck and neck with each other and all the lines were that 7 points or less mark, like you would gain a lot more traction. But I think that's where the turnoff is when you get a Tennessee versus Georgia. And let's say Tennessee is 5th in the country and Georgia is unranked and Tennessee wins by 46. It's like, that happens. That happens in guys hoops, but it's usually an outlier when things like that happen.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like you don't get the chaos, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of Florida lost a bye game last year or 2 years ago, like as 20 points. Oh, excuse me. Eastern Illinois beating Iowa.
Yeah.
30-point underdogs, largest in history. Those are anomalies. But like you get that in the men's. I feel like the women's is just chalk, chalk, chalk. Like South Carolina lost at home for the first time in 8 years last week. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But we're not poo-pooing ladies. And I am not poo-pooing ladies because I ambushed Will on this topic. But I just thought it would be something different we could talk about and have a nice laugh at. But I'm not saying like, hey, let's not cover it at all. It's not what I'm saying at all. Just you advertising it and ramming it down our throats isn't going to make us watch it. Like you got to fix the other stuff too.
You know what's a really good example of the way that like it hasn't happened actually is the women's hockey league. Is like it hasn't been like overly advertised, but like it's very, very interesting to watch. And like it's actually
they're good. Like they're fun. Like women
make that bettable.
Spit and chicklets. That's what I mean. Maybe that's not the answer, but I think you could fix that with if you made the lines. I feel like there's only a select few games you're able to bet on because, like on Action Network, I'll see somebody occasionally bet something women's related, but maybe some polarity in the teams would be a start. But yeah, like to your point, LSU's playing.
It's just how many bettable games are there on a given day, like 2, maybe 3, whereas college basketball on a slate of 50 games, there's probably 20 games that you look at and be like, I would bet that game.
Yeah. Anything else to add on this?
No, I like that though.
Yeah, I tried. I'm trying to think outside the box a little bit. It's last couple of weeks have been slow. Don't cancel us, please. Want to sign us off, Will?
That's all we got. Follow us on Twitter at Overdue Sports. Subscribe to the Substack. Get these right in your inbox and on your phone, so you don't even have to bother to hunt for this thing. You can just get it right away. We've got some stuff coming up. I know we keep saying we're getting more writing on, but it is coming.
There is writing in the drafts folder. We are writing. I am writing. I promise. It's just not ready to be. I gotta edit still, but we're getting there.
It's coming. And we are out of here.